What is going on, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of the NFL Whip Around. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Coach Kevin Smith. Coach, what's up?
What's up, Jeff? How are you, man? Another great week of NFL football. I think the NFL is off to a fabulous start. Two really exciting weeks of games so far.
Yeah, as much as I hate it, the NFL does do a good job of getting marquee matchups every single week, and they avoid that lull that sometimes happens in college football where you just don't have those big games and those big opponents. So let's talk about the marquee game of the week, in my opinion, and we talked about this a little bit on a couple shows, mainly on the Pro Football Insider's Football Buffet. The Chiefs and Eagles went head-to-head, and this was a 4 o'clock Fox. It's a nationally televised game, essentially. The Chiefs lost 20-17 to the Eagles in their Super Bowl rematch and are now 0-2. Is the window closing for this championship, window, I guess if you want to put it that way, for the Chiefs, or is it way too early, Coach, to make that declaration? What were your thoughts on that game?
My thoughts on that game were you can see Philadelphia's the better football team. I mean, Kansas City's very good on defense. They did a nice job containing Philadelphia's offense, but Philadelphia is just bigger, stronger, more physical. Patrick Mahomes really struggled against the Eagles. 2 Super Bowls now and this game where Philadelphia has gotten the better of Mahomes. I know they won that first Super Bowl, but they do a nice job of making him uncomfortable. As for the bigger picture, I think it's too early to say that the window has closed. It's been a big damn window. They won 5. They've been in 5 out of the last 6 Super Bowls. But if you look at them where they are right now, they're 0-2, and over the next 7 weeks, I'll give you some of their opponents over the next 7 weeks. They have to play Baltimore, Detroit, Washington, at Buffalo, at Denver. I mean, they got some tough games. They've got the Giants and Jacksonville in there as well. It's conceivable that they could go 3-4 over that stretch and find themselves at 3-6 at the midway point of the season. And at that point, it becomes problematic for them. So this is a really big stretch of games that Kansas City faces.
As for me and my take on this, I'm going to quote you and what you've said for the last 2 years that we've done this show, and that is you've got to drive the stake through to actually kill the beast. And
Yep.
Yeah, they're against the ropes right now at 0-2. That's not a good start. No one foresaw that happening. But I would say that it's an uphill battle, not just because of the games that you said, but also I think their division is much more difficult than it has been in the past. You talk about them being in 5 out of 6 Super Bowls, and that's a tremendous feat. Not taking anything away from them in that regard. They also, at times, had a really easy division slate. The Raiders are better. They've already lost to the Chargers once. The Broncos, I think, are a team to beat in the AFC. It's not an easy road to hoe, so to speak, anymore. And so, therefore, I do have some questions about whether the Chiefs can get it done. I don't even know if they'll win the division. Do you still think they recover and do that?
I think a lot of it depends upon when they get Xavier Worthy back. I don't know what Rashee Rice's status is right now. I mean, those are 2 big playmakers in their offense. And if they can get those guys back into the fold and begin to become more explosive, because it's hard to – I can't believe I'm saying this about a Kansas City offense, but it's kind of ponderous. They don't run the ball great. They don't create plays down the field. So they need the speed and explosion of those 2 wide receivers. If they get those guys back – then I can see them catching fire. The back half of their schedule is not real tough. And maybe it's one of those things where, everybody beats up on everybody and 10-7 will get you the title. But if somebody gets hot, like if the Chargers go 13-4, Kansas City's not going to win the division.
Now, something else that came up in this game, which has been discussed a lot the day after, and especially on social media, is, again, the tush push. There's been some video evidence of just some egregious offsides on both sides of the coin. The offense moving early, the defense jumping way before the snap. What's your take on all this stuff? Do you just still say it's a football play, you got to stop it, and you can let them do it until, or do you think that it's getting to the point where you're like, okay, enough might be enough? Any changes in that realm?
I think that the league will begin to scrutinize it more because this was such a high-profile game, and there were, as you said, several egregious examples on both sides of the ball. It's becoming like the Wild West down there. You got defensive linemen lunging, trying to punch the ball out before the snap, and who knows what goes on at the bottom of that pile. The thing is that the thing I come back to is this: if the play in and of itself was unfair in some way. Why aren't all 32 teams doing it well? It's only Philadelphia that does it consistently like this. And it's because they've mastered that play. They have a quarterback who can squat over 600 pounds. They have one of the best offensive line coaches in the game. So if you take the play out, it's because you're punishing Philadelphia, not because you're penalizing the rest of the league, because the rest of the league has the same opportunity to do it as Philly does.
Yeah,
I think ultimately it's going to get removed. I really do, because I think the aesthetics of it are something the NFL is not comfortable with.
Well, and I don't want to leave this game before talking a little bit about the Eagles. You did say that the Eagles were superior to the Chiefs in most facets, bigger, stronger. I don't know if faster is the right word, but still. What's your takeaway of the Eagles here defending their championship after 2 weeks?
Last year, Philadelphia struggled a little bit out of the gate, and then counting the playoffs, ripped off 16 out of 17. So for them to be 2-0, I don't think they've been particularly impressive in either game. They struggled at home with Dallas. They were in a dogfight with Kansas City. They've played two good football teams. They're probably going to get better as the season goes. Most well-coached teams do. Yeah. So if Philadelphia can be good early, then that speaks highly of their chances to defend their crown, because the odds are, provided they don't get major injuries, that they're going to be good late.
I agree. Let's go to our next topic, which are these really close games that came down to some interesting kicker situations. Let's start with, we have the Giants, who lost in overtime after Brandon Aubrey kicked a 64-yard field goal on the last play of regulation. My gosh, there's that in the Broncos. They appear to have won the game until Indy missed a kick, but then they got flagged for roughing the center. Who do you think had it worse, the Giants' loss or the Colts? Or sorry, the Broncos losing, the Colts winning.
I mean, I think the Broncos had it worse, because like when Brandon Aubrey went out for the 64-yard field goal, you knew he was going to make it.
Yeah,
Brandon Aubrey. He's got more 60-plus yard field goals than any kicker in NFL history. So. And he trotted out there like he was kicking an extra point. Like it was no sweat off his back. The Colts kicker was kicking a 60-yard field goal. He looked nervous as hell. Did you ever see Necessary Roughness when they got to kick the onside kick at the end and they're looking for the guy to kick it to, and the one guy's shaking and his knees are shaking and he's sweating? That's what the Colts kicker looked like to try to kick that 60-yard field goal, and he wasn't even close. He missed that short and wide. So then to get that flag, the game's over, man. Denver wins. But they get that flag because what happened was the nose guard pushed the center down to the ground so that the guy behind him could leap over the center to try to block it. That's an egregiously stupid penalty. That's illegal forever. So now, and it's a 15-yarder, so now that 60-yard field goal becomes a 45-yarder and the kid makes it. So for me, that's a real gut punch.
And that's a game they might look back on and say, if things just go a different way there at the end. I do want to give the Giants some credit. I did not see this coming. Russell Wilson was vintage Russell Wilson in this game against Dallas, did everything that you could possibly imagine, and they just couldn't finish. They couldn't finish the game. The Giants seem to be just kind of that team that they look like they're okay, and we're all going to ask the same questions about the quarterback position. It's going to be tough to bench Russell Wilson after that performance, won't it?
Yeah, I thought Russell Wilson was playing for his job, because I thought if he turned in another stinker like he had in week 1, that they would turn the page and the Jackson Dart era would begin. But he certainly bought himself another week. I don't know how much longer the Giants can go if they don't win some football games before Brian Daboll pulls the switch, but it certainly was a big game for Russ.
And is Danny Dimes the entrenched starter, or is he going to turn into a pumpkin at some point for Indianapolis?
I mean, it's highly possible that he will, but he's off to a hell of a start, Danny Dimes, I mean, yeah. Indianapolis is probably the most unlikely 2-0 team in the league right now, and the way they're doing it, scoring points, the offense looking spectacular, I think that's the surprise of the season so far.
I want to ask you a quick question as an aside. I'm sure you've seen it on social media, but Jim Irsay's daughter, who's now in charge of the team, she's on the sideline. She's got a headset on. She's taking notes. There's a lot of people giving her crap for that. I'm curious what your takeaway is to see, I don't care male, female, but an owner on the sideline with a headset on. I mean, this is like some Jerry Jones stuff that he's just never done. What's your takeaway on that?
I think as long as she's staying in her lane, as far as that goes, it's fine. Meaning she wants to be privy to the communication, to the functionality, for lack of a better term, right? Are they executing their management well? That's fine. I mean, if she's like, hey, I don't want to run the ball here. Let's throw it. Then that's a huge problem.
We're not running duo here.
Not because she's a woman, but because any owner, that's a huge problem.
Yeah. It's a fine line between meddling and just having as much information as possible. So I don't have an issue with it, but like you said, you just got to stay in your lane. All right, let's go to our next topic. Special teams figured prominently once again in the NFL for the second straight week. It has to do with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were rewarded the luck of a fumble recovery against the Jets in week 1, ended up turning that into a touchdown and win. And then Caleb Johnson, the rookie, third-round draft pick out of Iowa, who I'm not sure why he's on kickoff return team. That's neither here nor there. If you want my take, go listen to our Steel Curtain Network podcast for that. But the ball hits in front of him, in case people didn't see it. It bounces over his head. I don't think he touches it. And instead of going back, because it lands in the kicking zone, or the whatever they call that, the landing zone, he has to then go kneel it in the end zone. It's not one of those, it goes in the end zone, it's an automatic touchback. He doesn't do that. Seattle's kick coverage goes down, gets on the football. It's a touchdown. The Steelers were going to be trailing by 3. Now they're trailing by 10. Who is at fault, in your opinion, Coach, of this gaffe?
Yeah, that's going to go down. The Pittsburgh Steelers, if you're a Steelers fan, you can quote some pretty significant gaffes. Plexico Burress spiking a live football, and Chase Claypool celebrating a catch in a 2-minute scramble drill rather than hustling to the line. And this will certainly be listed among those. I feel bad for the young kid. He should have known the rule. He should have known better. Ultimately, though, as a coach, I would just have to say that this is your job to understand who you're putting on the field and what they're aware of and what they're not. I mean, directly, is it the special teams coach's fault that Caleb Johnson didn't do this? No. But coaches get blamed all the time for things that players do that you as the coach are responsible for. I mean, your job is to prepare them. And if they're not prepared, whether it's fair or not, it's your fault. And so the Steelers coaching staff had an obligation to make sure that all their players on that kick return team understood the rules. And clearly they didn't. To me, it falls on the coaching staff.
I'm going to say that, yes, you're right. But I'm also going to say that as a player, especially one like Caleb Johnson, who essentially, for those that don't know, he's a special team specialist right now. He is not getting touches in the running game. He is essentially just being put out there on kickoff returns. How do you not know, okay, here's what happens if the ball goes out of bounds. Here's what happens if it's kicked to me. Here's what I have to do if it's not kicked to me. Here's if the ball goes in the end zone. I think back to my time in high school playing baseball, not football, but I was a catcher. I had to know where the baseball was going to go depending on the situation, no matter what. My coach used to grill us on this stuff because the catchers are like the captains of the team. In this case, this kid had one job. Your job is to know exactly what to do in every possible scenario on special teams. And this was a pretty basic one, and he literally let it go. Now, you can blame Danny Smith, the special teams coach, and he deserves some blame, but I can't pass blame off of Caleb Johnson because he, even as a rookie, you got to know what to do. This is as dumb as when we saw Gunnar Olszewski toe tap on the sideline, catching a ball on a kickoff instead of letting it go out of bounds and getting the ball to 40. Just mind-numbingly stupid. And again, the Steelers were going to get the ball down 3. Instead, they're getting the ball down 10. That was essentially the straw that broke the camel's back. You got to put some blame on Caleb Johnson, right?
Sure. I mean, he should have known the rule, no doubt about it. But, I mean, that's the thing, too, though, where you can't assume anything as a coach. You get those guys in the huddle before you send them out on the field. You got a great opportunity there to give them reminders. Hey, remember, we want to do this. We want to block this guy. We're not going to block that guy. Remember, if the ball lands in the landing zone, you have to field it. You have to pick it up. I mean, you got to go over everything over and over and over again, especially with a rookie playing in his second professional game. I mean, to me, the coaching staff has to make sure. I mean, even if you have to overkill it. Like we use a rule in our program that I established years ago. We call it the rule of 3. We say everything 3 times because that's what, kids need to hear over and over again. I mean, educational studies show that you have to tell somebody something 3 times before they begin to digest it. So we would say, you got to block down, block down, block down. So, I mean, I just feel like the coaching staff has to bear the responsibility for making sure all the players know what to do in that situation.
It's bad all around. Now, as a coach, are you putting Caleb Johnson back out there next game, or is this a
no? I didn't like him out there to begin with. I didn't think that was a role that he was well suited for, and I think this seals the deal.
Yeah. I mean, if he wasn't a 3rd-round pick, I could see him. He was, let's say, an undrafted player. I could see him being cut, but or inactive at least the next week. But still, we'll see how it goes. The Steelers lose that game and drop to 1-1. All right, let's go to our 4th topic. Through 2 weeks of the season, which team has impressed you the most, Coach? I'll let you go first.
I think, in terms of play on the field, nobody's been more impressive than Green Bay. But I'll go back to Indianapolis. I think that Indianapolis, given their quarterback situation heading into the season, you looked at the Anthony Richardson debacle, and you said to yourself, boy, they drafted this guy 4th overall a couple years ago, and now they're pretty much like going to wind up parting ways with him most likely after this season. And they got to land on Daniel Jones, and he's been let go by 2 different teams. They're in for a long year. But they make a great 1st-round pick with Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, who looks like he's going to be an immediate impact player. Jonathan Taylor is still at the top of his game. He rushed for 160 yards on Sunday. They've always had a good offensive line in Indianapolis. So they always protect the quarterback pretty well and can run the football a little bit. And to get a win like they did on Sunday, where your game's kind of over. You miss the field goal, you're going to lose, but you get a second chance and you redeem yourself and you get the win over a good Denver team. That's the kind of thing that could be a springboard to a young football team, and you build off that momentum. The AFC South is up for grabs. I mean, there's not, Houston's good, but certainly not dominant. And if you're a young Indianapolis team, the success you're experiencing right now is really important in building the confidence that could transcend into more success later.
All right, so when I think about impressive, you went AFC, I'll go NFC, and it's a team you already mentioned. I look at not just how they're winning, but who they're beating. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers have been the most impressive by far. I mean, when you think about their Week 1 win, 27-18 over the Washington Commanders, okay, that was a good, solid win. If you watch that game, it was probably not even as close as that final score would indicate. Then they host the Lions on Thursday Night Football, short week. They dominate that game as well. And then you look at the upcoming slate of games for them, and it's really not that bad. Like, you have the Browns on the road, the Cowboys on the road. You host the Bengals, Cardinals, Steelers. Then the Panthers. There's a good chance that they rattle off a lot of wins before they play the Eagles, and that's like their next huge test game. I think the Green Bay Packers, and then you throw in the fact that they make that trade just before the Week 1 game for Micah Parsons. To me, they're the most impressive team so far in the NFL. What's your take on them?
Right now, they look way ahead of many teams in the league in terms of their execution. They look like they're in mid-season form. But I will say this, too. They are riding the adrenaline of the Micah Parsons trade. They've had 2 games at home. They haven't faced any real adversity yet. So it's all gone their way so far. I mean, yeah. I want to see how they respond when they have to really deal with some adversity. But, yeah, man, if the question out of the gate is like, who's been the most impressive, it's hard to argue against Green Bay.
All right, let's finish this up with our 5th topic, and that is news broke Monday morning that Joe Burrow, who left Cincinnati's game, they won the game actually over the Jacksonville Jaguars at home, with a toe injury, will need surgery. He has I don't know what the severity of it is, but it's a pretty significant turf toe injury, and he's going to be out for a minimum of 3 months. It's looking as if he won't be back in the lineup till possibly December. The Bengals are 2-0, but is their season over without Burrow at quarterback? Is Jake Browning good enough to get the job done? Coach, I'll let you go. What do you think?
It's tempting to say that their season is over, although Jake Browning came in relief and did some good things. I mean, he threw 3 picks, but he also threw for over 240 yards, and he rallied them to a big win over Jacksonville. How far is Jake Browning going to be able to take you? I mean, if you're Cincinnati, that 2-0 start is huge because they've been terrible in September. So I think they're 5-15 over the last 4 or 5 Septembers. So to get off to a 2-0 start builds them a little bit of a cushion. If they can somehow be around 500 when Joe Burrow gets back, and maybe he'll be able to rally. He'll probably be back for maybe the last 2 or 3 games of the regular season. Looks like he's returning in December sometime. If they're around 500, who knows, man? Maybe they can sneak into the playoffs. But I think that's a big ask in a really, really tough division. I don't want to say that their season's over, but it sure looks that way. It feels that way.
Well, 2-0, yes. And instead of having like the knee-jerk reaction, let's look at what they have coming up. So in this upcoming week, they have the Vikings at home. Then they go to they go to Minnesota. Then they go to the Denver Broncos. They host the Lions. They go to Green Bay. They host the Steelers. And then they have the Jets and Bears and Steelers again before like Patriots, Ravens, Bills, Ravens. That is a tough schedule. Yeah. And so I'm going to go on record and say that they are not going to this is going to do them in. They're not going to be able to recover from this. Joe Burrow was a sitting duck essentially the last 2 weeks. Anyways, he was getting hit early and often. That offensive line is barely good enough to have an all-pro quarterback like Joe Burrow behind him. Jake Browning, I just don't see him being able to get the job done. You said 500. If they're at 500 by the time Burrow returns, goodness gracious, what a job that would be. But again, it almost feels like it's another season-ending injury for Joe Burrow, which has been kind of commonplace since he's entered the league. I don't know, Coach. Any final thoughts on the Bengals?
Well, you mentioned the offensive line. They have never, I saw this on Twitter this morning, they have never finished better than 27th in the league in pass block efficiency since drafting Joe Burrow. So that is, people like to use the word coaching malpractice. That is organizational malpractice. To not, you've spent all this money on Chase and T. Higgins and Burrow, and yet you haven't provided them the resources to stay healthy so that you can be successful because your offensive line stinks. I mean, I just feel as though that organization just doesn't get it, man. There's just some fundamental things that you have to get. You got to play some defense. You got to protect your quarterback. And yeah, I know it's hard when you're paying all these money to these superstars, but other teams figure out how to do it as well. I mean, Philly's got superstars all over the place and one of the best offensive lines in the league. It can be done.
We'll see what happens with Cincinnati and the fact that they'll be without Joe Burrow for a significant portion of the season. But let's finish up the show with a player profile. You want to talk about Mac Jones, who was the quarterback of the 49ers as they went and beat the New Orleans Saints, which isn't saying much, 26-21. What's your thoughts on Mac Jones, who was in for Brock Purdy, who's out with a toe injury himself?
So my thought on Mac Jones is this, that going into yesterday's game, it just felt like, boy, San Francisco's going to have to run the heck out of the ball. I thought for people who like prop bets, I thought, hey, Christian McCaffrey, his over-under on rushing attempts was 18.5. And I said, man, take that over because they're gonna ride Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey got 13 carries on Sunday, and Mac Jones threw the ball 33 times, I think. And he was great. 280 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. This is as much about Kyle Shanahan as it's about Mac Jones. Because let's be honest, Mac Jones has not been very good as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Yet in that Kyle Shanahan system, he's able to find success. So, hats off to Mac Jones, but I think this is also a huge assist to his head coach, who continues to prove that he's one of the best in the business.
We have Rob Stats Guerrera, who covers the 49ers for us at Fans First Sports Network, and he's always said, and there's other people in the 49ers realm, that Kyle Shanahan always liked Mac Jones coming out of Alabama, and he would love to have him as his quarterback. And there's some people that think that if Mac Jones in this 3-week stretch plays really, really well, that there will be a decision to be had between Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. That doesn't make much sense considering the fact that you just paid Brock Purdy all that money.
Yeah, that's your decision right there.
Exactly. But still, yeah. Okay, kudos to Mac Jones. This guy is finding his way all around the NFL seemingly. And so he finds his way into San Francisco and has a good game. Good for him. All right, Coach, what's coming up on the call sheet this week?
Yeah, we're into our season rotation, which is on Monday. We do Monday morning game balls. Tuesday, I usually pick a topic of the week I like to focus on. Today's topic is the best. Who are the best 2-0 teams and the best 0-2 teams in the league right now? We got Whiteboard Wednesday. Thursday, I think our Thursday show is going to be really interesting. The Portal, that's our college football show. We're going to address the question of, is the vaunted quarterback class of 2026, the one that everybody's talking about as being so great, is it really that good? Because so far, the reviews have been pretty awful of the draft-eligible quarterbacks. So that's our lineup for the week. Friday, hot route with Pez, as always.
As always. Yeah, that's always a fun one. Check that out. Wherever you get your podcast by searching the Call Sheet Daily. If you want our coverage of the Pittsburgh Steelers, all you have to do is go to the Steel Curtain Network, wherever you get your podcast, or steelcurtainnetwork.com. You'll see Coach's writing as well as mine. You can check it out there again, steelcurtainnetwork.com. But Coach, thanks for your time, man. We'll talk next week on another NFL Whip Around. Take it easy.